at the end of the day, our brains are wired to crave order, peace and order. That's how we're all wired. And there is this thing like our outer environments can mirror our inner and vice versa. And when you and your clients are like, I am doing this thing, I'm hitting this goal, I am so determined. Sometimes in those moments, it's like this desire to create that goal, right? Can then dive into their physical environment. And it's because it has such a direct influence on our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, actions, all the things.
All right, Miss Katy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you. And I should say again, but you were on my show, I'm on yours. So I feel like it made me even more excited to come back and like just be with you and your audience today.
This is how I always joke. It's like online dating. This is how I make friends and connections online. And, we tell stories and we share value. And it's really interesting how we connect with others in the world based on our values. And it was Megan Sumrall that was like, you need to connect with Katy Wells, and I think you guys would get along, and I can see why she thought that. I was on your show, and of course, I talk a lot about energy management and time management, the invisible stuff, and minimalism is your jam and your thing. And I think I'm actually a minimalist at heart. That said, my husband would disagree, and he would say that I hoard and keep and do all these things. And I will tell you, I don't actually believe that to be true. I think it's the decision fatigue of having to go through the piles and through the stuff. And I'm sure, there's like, what you can't see, right, is like the pile of books and all of that. And yeah, I'm just having an aha moment right now, real time. Cause he's like, you hoard stuff. And I was like, it's not emotional to me. It's more of the decision fatigue of all of those tiny decisions that I don't have the capacity to make right now, nor do I want to. But if an organizer came in here and was like, you want this? I'd be like, no, 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 no. So that's where my shit gets in the way.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? When you feel like we have the self-awareness about ourselves and we're like, I am this person. And then our partners are like, actually, no. And just like you said, I love that we kicked it off starting in this way because culturally and in our societies, women have been responsible for like the home and how the home looks for generations. There is this like extra pressure on us. And when we have this pressure and this expectation, whether we want it or not, we can assign meaning to this stuff. And these piles you talk about, we all have them. They accumulate, whether it's clutter or expected mess, which are two different things. And I want to dive into that at some point in our conversation, is that I used to look at those piles and not just see stuff. Like you said, it was 47 decisions I needed to make where maybe your partner, your husband goes like, just get it out. Like maybe he can make that call faster. And it's not always like some emotional pull, but speaking to the meaning, like on a deeper level, right? We're getting emotionally uncomfortable. Me and so many women I've worked with, again, we look at the piles and it's not just stressful or annoying or frustrating or decision fatigue. It's, I am just never going to be organized. I am a bad wife or mother or homemaker because I just can't figure this out. I stink at this. I am a loser. Is this really how I am? I'm so smart in these other areas, my career. Why can't I figure out how to maintain my home and get my home in order? I used to think this on the daily, and it created so much shame and frustration for me, where maybe other people looking in, and by the way, it's always easier when it's not your stuff, always, because it's human nature, who can just be like, just let it go, right? I tried to follow all that. Just let it go. Just ask, does it spark joy? And I'm like, but what if I need it? But this could come in handy. But I spent good money on this, all the objections, right?
Oh, geez. Yes. We've had 3 floods in our house, that in the basement. So we had everything in the crawl space, and we've lost it 3 times. And I remember the first time I'm like, we can't repair. Like it was like sewage. It was disgusting. And so it's like, okay, everything is gone. Besides maybe a few baby things or photos that were ruined, I have not missed one. I can't remember one thing that I lost that wasn't repairable. And I think I started my parenting journey 20 years ago, and digital photography was just, on a phone or a camera was a thing. Not so much the phone back then. So I have a lot of digital copies of that, and that was not ruined. So technically I still have photos. And so I can't remember one thing that we've lost that had significant meaning to me. And I remember that feeling of like, oh, I'm going to do that someday. I'm going to do that someday. And then when we lost it, I was like, there's grief, there's sadness. Yes. But then it was like a clear slate, and I felt free. I felt light. And so I always like to talk about the identity shift of like the releasing of stuff and letting go. So what do you often find as like, the control, like where people are white knuckling, like, I can't, because we get to keep what we defend. So where do you find women specifically become very defensive on decluttering?
This is such a great question. So through my own journey and developing my philosophy, which is called holistic decluttering, and looking not just at the stuff and giving surface level solutions, which so many of the stuff out there does, and traditional advice, it's like getting to the root of it. Instead of chopping the weed at ground level and your garden looks good for a day, right? It's pulling the weeds out by the root. That is my whole philosophy. And again, through this means and getting to the root of it, I realized that there is not only one type of clutter. And so let's talk about those. So the first one, and the easiest one, and the only one most people start and end with, is superficial clutter. So if you look at clutter like an onion, or like we've all cooked or like felt an onion, you're chopping it, like the outer layer just peels off with very little effort, right? This is the stuff that like you don't want, you don't need, it's excess. Like there is no emotional tie. There is no, what if I need this? It's just a little time and attention, and you add it to a donation bin and you're good to go. Most people feel better after they tackle that superficial clutter. And that's what a lot of the traditional advice helps you do. But then they stop and wonder why their house feels like they did nothing 2 days later, because there's so much more. And I would say I've had my eyes in thousands of homes over the years, of families. And realistically, at looking at all the clutter types as a whole, superficial clutter only accounts for maybe like 10 to 15%. So let's dig deeper, right? So the next layer in this little clutter onion is scarcity clutter. This one is the just in case stuff. This is the clothes you might wear someday, the old cords, the kitchen tools you have duplicates of, but you're afraid to let go because what if the other one breaks, whatever. And at one point that made sense, but now it's taking up more mental space and physical space than it's worth. Okay. And then the next layer is sentimental clutter. A lot of us can kind of self-identify with different areas or boxes of things or items in our home that are sentimental. Mm-hmm. The wedding dress, like you said, the baby shoes, grandma's china, whatever that looks like. And that's really about the emotion and nostalgia. So now let me get to the identity piece, which this is my favorite one. And
I know I'm like on the edge of my seat.
This is the core of that clutter onion, girl. We're going to like maybe have a little tears. That's okay. Just like when we cut an onion, sometimes it makes us cry. This is something I really struggled with, and it felt so good to just name and give myself some new tools for. So identity clutter is physical items in your home that are either tied to who you used to be. So think like, I'll give you some examples, like the 5K medals or the marathon trophies or the educational textbooks that you studied in for 4 years to get your master's or whatever, like this type of stuff that is really involved in such a transformative period of our lives. It could be the old corporate suits that you don't wear anymore because you work from home, but it's like, oh, like that was such a season of my life. It reminds me of achievement. It reminds me of feeling successful. I feel powerful when I put those on, Yeah. And it's also can be tied to who we want to become or who others expect us to become. And then we can kind of, a subset of identity clutter can be like this aspirational clutter. We all buy things in the pursuit of optimizing, being better, like being fitter, being smarter. But those things can kind of guilt us. Like if you see the treadmill and it's become a glorified clothes hanger in your bedroom for the last 2 years, it's not helping you hit your goal. And our stuff speaks to us, right? It can lift us up. It can bully us. It can put us down. And if you see that treadmill that is, serving a purpose of not helping you improve your health, but just holding clothes, a great question you can ask yourself is, does this feel like an invitation to be that better version of me I want to be? Or does this feel like a guilty obligation? Right. And just asking yourself that one question can be really, I think, bring in a lot of awareness to the situation. But identity clutter is so, like all clutter can be really loaded and nuanced. And we can have these different areas of our home where we're like great at decluttering. Maybe for you, it's like, I'm great at tackling the kitchen counters or certain, maybe for you, it's clothes or your kid stuff. It's always easier to tackle someone else's, right? But then you're like, oh, this makes sense. Like, yeah, I can see I have scarcity clutter in my closet or identity clutter in my closet, right? And yeah, so it's a really powerful way to kind of look at it and find the right tool for the job. Just like when we build a house, we're not just using a hammer and nails. We need power drills. We need to figure out what tool we need to move forward, right?
Okay, this is interesting to me because I just had an aha moment. So I teach this, but on a daily basis, I am so obsessed with identity because I'm like, who do I need to become, right? How do I want to feel? So it is easier for me to get rid of identity clutter than surface level because I think that is because I'm always focused from the inside out. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go right to the closet. Like this year, I hired a stylist and her whole philosophy was we're dressing you for your future self. And it was such an uncomfortable process. And so we went through the editing process and I'm like, I'll start with a fresh slate. I don't care. And then there was those comfort clothes, right? So she calls it your comfort uniform or whatever. And so I go through this whole process. I have these new clothes in my closet. I'm very aware of the identity process. So I'm like, I still pick the two tops. Like the top I'm wearing right now is part of my comfort clothes. I like the necklace. That's the new thing that I bought with her. That I literally went to go pick out another shirt. I was like, oh, that's too uncomfortable. Let's go back to the comfort. Yes. And until I get rid of this shirt to force myself to step into the new identity. So I have given myself permission that this is going to take time. Like you've done the work to get the new clothes in the closet, edit the other stuff. And I was like, oh, this might take me a year or 6 months to lean into these new clothes until they feel comfortable. That said, you were talking about, I don't know what, aspirational clutter.
Yes.
I was like that fucking Peloton that I have it was like, we should call it COVID clutter of all the things we accumulated during COVID that we no longer use I'm like, what are we going to do with this Peloton? And it's like, oh, I was looking on Facebook Marketplace. I'm like, they're so cheap now, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. And it's becoming a clothes hanger. And it's like, get it the fuck out of my space. But I was like, why haven't I gotten rid of that? And I'm like, because I just don't want to make the decision right now. The decision will be made. But I was like, why am I holding on to it? Because there's money. I lost money. I don't want to just get rid of it. I want to get my ROI back. Oh, I should use it.
A lot of what you're describing too, and I want to hit on this because again, speaking to, it's so important because I think we are kind of spoon-fed this solution that is so oversimplified. Like use these bins and you'll be clutter-free forever. Use this checklist, use this one hack, use this whatever. And all of these things can be helpful on their own, but it's so much more nuanced than that, and it's just, it can be tough and it can be heart-wrenching and all these things you're talking about with it. And so I love psychology. I'm not a psychologist, but I think if I came back in another life, maybe I would do that. I don't know. But, I was like, how do I bring more humanness into this? All these strategies are focusing on the stuff. How do I focus on me? How do I focus on my students, right? That's the foundation of holistic decluttering. And I'm just like, why is this hard for so many people? And what you described is what's called the endowment effect. It's a psychological concept in reality that the longer you own something, whether you use it or not, the more attached to it you are and the harder it is to let go for all the reasons you said. Well, this cost money, right? No one likes, our brain does not like to feel like we lost. Loss aversion is a real thing. I don't want to feel like I failed at getting healthier. I don't want to feel like I failed at using my money the wrong way. So again, going back to the meaning we assigned things,
Mm-hmm.
if we're like, okay, I'm going to donate, or let's just say sell it, whatever, knowing I take a loss, sometimes it's helpful to reframe that and go, you know what, I did what I could, or I'm not in the season right now, or here's 5 other ways I'm working on my health that are simpler and better for me in the season that don't involve a Peloton. And I feel confident in letting go. And it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. I stink at this, or whatever those thoughts are. And I think that's, again, that's really pulling the weed out by the root. And it might sound a little bit different for everyone, but the more you can just tune in and do that little self-reflection, like what's getting to the heart of it. And maybe it is simply just money. That's okay. Then maybe you would pursue selling it and at least get some of the money back. And if I decide I want this in the future, could I borrow one? Could I rent one? I know they have a renting program. My sister did that. And 3 months later, she's like, I haven't touched it. I'm going to get, it's going back.
That's actually a great business model.
It sure is. It sure is. Yeah.
Well, and everyone's sending back their Peloton so that they can rent them as like an Airbnb for your Peloton. Like they can just give it to other people. You know what came up for me when you were talking about this is I got a little emotional because I was like, I think that Peloton saved me during COVID. And I, first of all, wouldn't have been able to put a price on that. And it wasn't just me who used it. It was like my husband, or I'd watch the kids on it too. And I'm like, wow, that bike like got us through really hard times, or it's like, just get on the bike, just get on the bike. And interesting. And I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to put a price on mental health or emotional well-being. Like I would have sold everything to stay intact. And so it's like, not even just, I can say it's the money, but the reality is that was a moment in time. And it has more it may have more sentimental value, but even just the flip of like, it has served its purpose.
Yes.
And it was worth every penny. And now it's time to go. We've moved on, different season.
Isn't that interesting? Like your knee-jerk reaction is, well, this cost money, right? And it can be useful. And then when you're like, oh, actually, if I think about it a little bit longer, and you get emotional. For those not watching and just listening, I saw the tears in her eyes. This is a very human response. And we're tapping into these moments. Like for me, it wasn't a Peloton during COVID. It was CrossFit. I was doing, virtual, like with my gym, but that was my 20 minutes of sanity at home. It was like, I need this more than I've ever needed fitness and exercise in my life for my mental and physical health. Cause it was, it was such a hard time. And now at one point I realized COVID's over and I love my gym community, but I wasn't going there anymore. It's too far from my house. My lifestyle looks a little bit different now. So again, I was like, well, this is a gym membership, but it felt harder to cancel because I remembered that deep feeling and the meaning I assigned it, right? So to reframe it, I was like, I can still love this gym community and not be a part of it. It served a purpose for when I needed it most. And for that, I am forever grateful. And just because something serves us once or for a season, it doesn't mean it needs to be and deserves a spot in our lives forever. And we can always go back. You can, again, 9.9 times out of 10, you won't be like, I want to rebuy a Peloton, right? But we can always find a new way to extract that feeling, maybe through a different product, a different item, or a new lifestyle or, activity or hobby, things like that.
I want to talk about that. But before we do that, so put a pin in that, make sure we come back to it, because that one is who I am now. But the cultural expectation of consumption is probably what makes me most uncomfortable. But what I want to talk about is this urge that I see in my clients to declutter when they've made a decision to change. And I'm like, this is like a primal nesting thing,
Right.
where sometimes they come into my worlds, we're doing the work, and there's so much resistance. And it's either shows up immediately or they're like a bat out of hell and they're just like, whoosh, and they're like, I'm going to declutter everything. I was like, slow down, slow down. But this urge, she's like, why do I want to get rid of everything? I have a theory on it, but I'm curious your thought.
At the end of the day, our brains are wired to crave order, peace and order. That's how we're all wired. I mean, I'll give you a great example. Have you ever watched a before and after home makeover HGTV, or like Hoarders, or even seen an image online of a before picture and an after picture? Like, picture a cluttered kitchen. There's like junk everywhere. There's clutter. There's expected mess. It's chaos, right? And then your brain scans to the right and it sees surface area. It sees the floors. It sees space. And even if it's not your home, your brain's like, wow, right? There's a physiological response because of how we're wired. And it's interesting too, like you said, some people are like, I'm going to order the dumpster. They are so ready. And I think it's because of how we're wired, our bodies crave that space and that peace. And there is this thing, like, our environments can mirror, our outer environments can mirror our inner, and vice versa. And when you and your clients are like, I am doing this thing, I'm hitting this goal, I am so determined. Sometimes in those moments, it's like this desire to create that goal, right, can then dive into their physical environment. And it's because it has such a direct influence on our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, actions, all the things. So it's interesting, like you said, like the dovetail between those things, and how it can show up a little bit differently for everyone. Some people are just like slow and steady, wins the race. That's fine too. And that's really my approach, because we have to keep it sustainable. I don't have 6 hours a day to declutter, and I don't want to waste my weekends decluttering anymore. And not spend time with my family, which is what everyone thinks decluttering has to look like for the most part. It's not true. But when you feel those sparks of like something has to give, like, lean into it. Like I always say, our body knows. It really does. It's just what's going on between our ears that tries to justify it. Well, this costs money. What if I need this? Like, thinking worst case scenario. Like, I know you talk about this too. We have to shift. And a lot of this is culture, right? Culture, this fear, like fear of missing out, fear of the sale not coming back, fear of never having enough. Well, when is enough enough? It's never enough. It's never enough. And this is how we end up, like, the average American home has over 300,000 items in it. 300,000 items. Now you are leaving your home for 3 months and you don't have a lot anyway. But I know, because you've shared, you're even looking forward to having less than you already do, right? Just thinking about it, you're like, oh, I really look forward to that. Like, I talked to so many women who, after the holidays, they're like, Katy, I kind of loved living out of an Airbnb. It was easier to clean up. I didn't have like 18 piles of junk to go through in order to get the thing I needed. And they're like, let's go,
Yeah. I'm curious about this. So for those who are not aware, my family and I will be in Mexico for 3 months, or that's the vision and intention. Let's see if it occurs, but that's the intention. I was just there looking at a place to rent, and I was talking to an American expat family who lives there, who are friends. And one of them was like, part of the reason why we left the States was we were fatigued by the overconsumptionism. And I watched their lifestyle. They actually moved to Mexico, had a baby in Mexico. They said out of pocket cost was a fraction of what it would have cost in the States. And the care was so much better. People don't know that either, because they don't go there and look at the hospitals, but it is a way better experience. Or their perspective it was anyways, but they're like brand new facilities. And the overconsumptionism and just like the community and the village and, that whole sense of what people are craving, I think we've swung so far. And I have this conversation with clients a lot about children's activities, and they're so fatigued. And it's interesting to watch the older women who are like, I actually have regrets about how we did activities. And if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would have opted out of certain things because I actually think it was detrimental to my children's mental and emotional well-being. And I just see that as a form of clutter too. This cultural conversation, whether it's the holiday gift giving or the academia or the extracurriculars, it is swung so far. Nobody's satisfied with it. And we're like, it is what it is. It is what it is. And I'm like, why are we not just stopping, reassessing, and opting out? So, yeah, because I think we're getting to that point where people are, we have self-awareness. But it's like, why are people not changing their behavior and opting out? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like there's this juxtaposition between our true desires, which is simpler. Like I'll talk to any mom in the car line when I'm waiting at school, and it's everyone saying the same thing. I'm busy. I feel like a chauffeur. I gotta run around like a chicken with my head cut off to get little Susie to gymnastics and little Bobby to baseball practice. And little Bobby's only 5, but they're already scouting him for the travel team. And we have to drive 2 hours away next weekend and every weekend for the next 3 months in a row. So little Bobby can get a head start. And then, it's like, it's a lot. And, in those moments, I think pressure really can, like cultural pressure, societal pressure, or this is just the way it is, can make us just be like, well, I guess this is just what we're going to do. Because they play to the part of our brains that we all want the best for our kids. And they're like, well, this is how you do it, right? If you want little Bobby to be an MLB when he's 20, get drafted, this is the way you do it. And I'm like, well, actually, the way I'm doing it is I'm choosing, I'll just say personally, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. You do what's best for you and your family. In our season right now, we've said no to all of the travel stuff, all of the long-term, like it's because it's so taxing, and it is the family unit that suffers often. Not always, but it can suffer. And so I really had to use my core values here, just like you said. And it is counterintuitive. It is counterculture. And that adds more friction, right? That adds more maybe uncomfortable conversations. Like you feel like you're letting your kid down if you don't sign them up for travel ball. Like it's so nuanced, and the guilt is real as a parent. But I think again, and I've continued to have conversations with my husband and our kids. My kids are now 10 and 9. It's like, this isn't just signing you up for basketball. It's the whole family signing up. And every time we say yes to something, whether that's your basketball or a play date or whatever, that means we're saying no to other things. And, what does that look like as a family unit? How can we work this out together? What do you think? I really bring my kids in on those conversations too.
And then sometimes they're comparing themselves to their friends of like, well, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to be like that. And it's just so intertwined and nuanced. And it's, again, there's no right or wrong. Return home to yourself. How do you want to feel? The life you want to live. And I think we can just have these little micro counterculture moments. Maybe saying no to Elf on the Shelf because it does not bring you joy. I'm such a rebel that I got a Snoop on the Stoop.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. I love this. My millennial heart is like singing right now.
I mean, it's not appropriate. He does have like a little joint sticking out of his mouth. Yeah. But I have teenage boys and he just sits in the tree. But that is my like declaration I'm not a fan of Elf on the Shelf, which is totally fine. I love it when people are like, this brings me so much joy. Yes. And I'm like, if it gives you life and energy, then do it. Yes. What I hate is the complaining and the victim and martyrdom of it, of like, I have to do this. Right. And I'm like, you did this to yourself, and it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. If it's not this, it's going to be something else. So create it in alignment with how you want to feel. So let's talk about under the tree, if that is the way that people quote unquote celebrate, or even just gift giving or exchange during the holidays. I'm curious your perspective on this, because this isn't just bigger culture. This is like, religious and other cultures as well when it comes to gift giving and expectations.
Yeah, I think, again, it's helpful to just consider, why do we give gifts anyway, beyond just the tradition of giving gifts for birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, whatever. Ultimately, at its core, it's to show someone that we care, right? Maybe it's your teacher and you're giving them a gift card or whatever, a little gift bag for whatever. You've been a great teacher to my kid this year. I appreciate you. We're showing love. We're showing connection. We're sending a message with a physical item. Now, keep in mind, on the other side of that, unwanted gifts is like a $10 billion annually spent on unwanted gifts, meaning,
Wow.
again, there can be well-intended. I'm not saying like people get all up in arms, like unwanted, like that makes you ungrateful if you say it's unwanted. It's like, well, no, it doesn't actually. The math ain't math, and that equation doesn't work for me. So a lot of people end up after the holidays with all these unwanted gifts. But unwanted gifts or not, I think a lot of people who do want to simplify are like, how can I give gifts without it being clutter or without adding more junk to the house? So a few categories I switched to over the years, and it can still be physical things, could be things like consumables, right? So like crayons and art stuff for your kiddos. I mean, finding obviously something age appropriate and that your kiddos are into. Anything that's consumable gets used up over time. Food, chocolate. I mean, I love coffee. If you give me coffee, I am like a dog. Like I will come back. Like I will love you forever if you give me coffee beans. Experiences are a really big one in our family. A couple Christmases ago, we went to the Bahamas. We took our kids to a little island called Cat Island, which I love this place because most people think of the Bahamas as like Nassau, like the big touristy spot. Cat, like there's nothing to do there. There's no tourism. There's no nothing. You rent an Airbnb and you just are. And that was our Christmas gift. And obviously that was not cheap, but we saved for it. We planned for it. And like we had no physical gifts for each other. And my kiddos were maybe like 5 and 6 at the time.
So I want to know this because this is where my guilt comes in. So Christmas morning, right? I'm all about the experiences. And then what gets me is Christmas morning, there's nothing under the tree. So what do you do if you've invested in one physical experience and you're like, shit, now what do I do?
Well, I think talking about that expectation, or like, depending on your kids' ages, right? It's like, well, you know how normally we have stuff to unwrap under the tree. If this is our gift, then, it might feel a little weird. You can also give something physical to go along. Let's just say it's a concert ticket. Let's just say like whomever. Well, who's someone popular right now? I'm still like stuck in the 60s. Taylor Swift. All right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I was like, I don't know. Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. You and me, I'm like, I don't know. My Spotify age wrapped this year was 73, which is the same age as my dad. And I was like, that so lines up.
But mine was whatever. 30. Mine was 30.
Oh, good for you. Share your playlist with me so I can feel more youthful. Taylor Swift, it could be a museum pass. It could be a water park pass. It doesn't, like for our kids this year, we're doing a ski day locally. Doesn't have to be fancy. You can wrap the ticket. You can give them a physical item along with the experience. So if it's skiing, maybe get them ski boots, get them a new ski jacket, give them ski goggles. If it's a ballet class, maybe you're getting your kiddo a ballet class. Maybe they need an item to go with that. One of my favorite ways that I kind of shifted to over the years, if it doesn't make sense to give them something physical that dovetails with the experience, is I 3 or 4 days before the holidays hit, I go and get a foil helium balloon, like from the grocery store. I saw this
on your Instagram
Yes,
stories.
It is the best because I was like, I don't want to give all the physical stuff. I just want to give the ticket or the gift certificate or gift card, but I want them to unwrap it, right? So you tie the ticket, whatever it is, gift certificate. It's a good way to like zhuzh it up, make it more experiential. You tie that to the end of the string, which is at the end of the balloon. You wrap the balloon in a box, wrap it with gift paper. And then when they unwrap, open the box, the balloon just floats up. So you want a little weight on it so it doesn't float up into the sky. And then it's just a really cool way to be like, look at your ticket, or look at your annual pass to the Botanic Garden, or look at your spa day, honey. Like, oh my gosh, like how cool is that? Everyone I've ever shared this with is obsessed with like doing gifts this way now.
Okay. So you were giving me inspiration. And I'm probably going to do that with the balloons.
Yes.
I also have an incredibly weird sense of humor. And so sometimes when my kids were little, It's different when they're little because there's expectation, but really I think it's like the wrapping that they like. So when my kids were like really, really little, I just would wrap things that they like, right? Like here's your banana. You love bananas. You love berries. Like we're just wrapping this stuff. And then, they open the thing. They're like, okay, there's that one gift. So this year, what I was thinking about doing is just getting a whole bunch of boxes so that it like looks really good, but it's kind of like a game. And there are like, okay, you're doing this, but then just like putting my face at the end of a balloon and just being like, I am a gift to you. Or like just like funny little humorous things of like rolls of toilet paper. Or like the things that they're always using, like a little light bulb and it's like electricity. And they'd be like, Mom, what the fuck? Like, I have like teenage boys and they'd be like, did you buy us anything? But I think for me, it's the visual of the boxes and like the gift, like waking up and being like, oh, so I'm like, okay, if I don't want all this like money and junk under the tree, what can I do to still get the same feeling? And so I was like, yeah, I'll just put these like empty boxes and make it funny or have boxes and boxes and boxes. So they have to like keep unwrapping, like make it more of a game.
I agree.
And then one thing that we actually have done in the past, which you just inspired me of like how I can wrap it is I was going to say I forced my husband. I asked my husband to write letters to the kids. So every year we'll just write a handwritten letter to each child during the holidays. And sometimes we'll do it during the birthday too. And that's a gift. It's like, here's a letter on like how proud I am of you this year, like all the things you've accomplished. Just, I'm proud of you. I love you. I see you. And you can wrap that. You can put that in a box. And honestly, that's all we want. That's all we want.
Yeah. I just saw an Instagram reel of a mom asking her maybe like 14-year-old daughter, tell me 3 things you got for Christmas last year. And the daughter was like, I don't remember. And then the mom was like, where did we go on our last family trip? She's like, oh, Lake Tahoe. Oh yeah, I had a great time. And she already like, it's like, it gives your mind something to latch onto. And there's nothing wrong with giving physical items. But I think if your gut's telling you like, let's do something different, maybe have the conversation, try something new. I wanted to share another funny thing a client did with the helium balloon idea was she taped dollar bills on the string. She made the string really long and she taped dollar bills on it. So like, you're not expecting a balloon to float up, but now you're seeing dollar bills. So her teenage boy was like, oh my gosh, grabbing for money in the air. And you're kind of confused at first. And she's like, he remembers that every single year, like, remember when mom played that, it was just, it's so funny. And that's really what it's about at the end of the day. Like we don't remember the gifts. We remember how we feel.
Mm-hmm. I'm reflecting on like my childhood and that could be a whole other podcast. And I think that's all we do around the holidays and, I want my kids to have a really good experience, but it's the meaning, the memory, the connection, and the feeling behind it. And I can see the impact of the presentation making a bigger lasting impact than the tally of what is under the tree, right? So it's really more about the connection and the feeling than, oh my God, I got that exact thing that I wanted and and everything on my list was checked off. I mean, yes, it's emotionally uncomfortable. The shit is going to trigger the crap out of you. Katy, I could talk to you forever and ever and ever. I want to talk a little bit about your book and, the book. Tell me about the book. Tell me about what you want the reader to walk away with. And, that's it. That's all I want to know right now. And then I'll ask you another question.
Well, if you love Heather's podcast and if you appreciate and see the value in getting emotionally uncomfortable, you will really love this book. I really know in my heart, it hits such a huge gap in this market that, I am in of decluttering. We're all, like I said, fed this idea of your home has to be perfect in order to serve you and your family, or given these oversimplified solutions that don't work more than a few days. So the book is called Making Home Your Happy Place, How to Declutter Without the Overwhelm. It's officially out February 17th, but it's available for pre-order now. And if you pre-order, you get all kinds of little thank you gifts from me, not clutter, really helpful stuff that'll help you on your declutter simplifying journey. And I really wrote it for the person who's tried the bins, who's tried the marathon purges, who's tried the one size fits all rules, and it hasn't stuck. And again, this book is different because we don't just focus on the stuff. Like, we focus on you. We focus on your emotions, beliefs, and habits that maybe have kept you stuck in the past. And equally on the flip side of that coin, how we can use those to get you unstuck. I dive deeper into the 4 clutter types. Each of those 4 clutter types we talked about briefly, that each have their own chapter. Your stuff story, which is the invisible really thread that we all have that shapes our relationship with our stuff. It talks about, the culture and all these different aspects, and really normalizes and just, I think, makes a lot of sense for that person out there who's tried decluttering, can't seem to get ahead. And, as opposed to the marathons, you don't need marathon purges to make, progress with decluttering, truly. And I'm all about that identity-based belief system. So we dive into that in more depths, and it really just meets you wherever you are. So if you want to feel lighter and calmer heading into the new year, if you're kind of regaining control and order in your home is a goal for you, this book will help.
Love it. And where can people find it, Katy?
Yep. Amazon, wherever you like to buy books, Barnes and Noble. I'll make sure you get that link, Heather, for your show notes. And it gets delivered to your doorstep the week of February 17th. And all the pre-order bonuses get you stuff that you can start using right away, no matter when you get the book, January 15th, January 1st, whatever. So you can start making progress. By the time the book lands on your doorstep of your home, you will already have made significant progress.
Ooh, that's a good one where you're like, yeah, let's get started right away. I think when you're ready for the deeper work, you understand it's connected to your identity. I find in my world, women will circle around me for a really long time because they know. I always use the pool analogy. They're like, I've committed to going swimming. I'm now at the pool, but I just keep walking around the pool, or I'm dipping my toe in. And you get to a point, what you resist will persist and grow bigger. And I think that same with the clutter journey, then you get angry and resentful. You're like, I just need to get rid of this shit. And you just have a panic purge. Sometimes we need to heal this all or nothing within us as well.
Yeah,
it's like,
so much.
Sometimes we don't just need to jump into the deep end, but it's like, make a commitment to just push your edge of discomfort and be like, okay, I would never declutter that or get rid of it. And I'm just going to do the damn thing. So I know that we just scratched the surface of everything. And we didn't talk a lot about how-tos here. And of course, they're going to get the book. They're going to get all the things with the book. Katy, you have a podcast as well, and Instagram. So if they want to go down the rabbit hole of everything about you, where can they find you online as well?
Yeah, come hang out on the podcast. It's called Maximized Minimalist. And I have episodes every Wednesday, bring in experts like Heather in all different areas. So if your goal in any way, shape, or form is to simplify your life heading into the new year, you're going to love it. And then Instagram is just my full name, Katy Joy Wells. And that is really my social media of choice. So come hang out with me there.
Love it. All right, Katy. Thank you.
Thank you.